Hi, everybody. Welcome to the final day of unveiling COVID-19 weddings and events. I am here with, last but certainly not least, Mr. Andrew Roby of Andrew Roby Events. Thank you so much. Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. I think that I'm glad to be last because of all the stuff that's been going on. But yes, I do appreciate being here. That's for sure.
So today we're going to talk about virtual meetings and virtual weddings and events. But let me tell you a little bit about Andrew first. Um, he is a proud Army vet who happens to be a BC event wedding and event planner, and he likes to call himself an event storyteller who's passionate about romantic weddings and events. Andrew has been a wedding and event planner for 13 years. 13 years. And he's most proud of the tremendous work that he's done with some charities. It's not just about planning events for him, it's about making sure you get the best help to reach your bottom line. Everybody, again, welcome Mr. Andrew Roby. Thank you. Thank you. So, Andrew, first of all, 13 years ago, how did you get into this 13 years ago?
So it was, oh my God, it really was not something. I mean, I would have never thought transitioning from being in the Army to being an event planner was something on my trajectory.
Right.
But it honestly is something I fell into. As I was in the Army, I started actually. They volunteered, which we say, me to sit on a board to help plan events for single service members. And it was challenging because we were working with like big names. We were working with like Coca-Cola was one of the right. And so I was like, okay, and then we were doing that. We started doing fashion shows and stuff like that. And I got excited about it. I really was really excited that I started to love it. And so as I decided to get out, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do as I transition and how to prepare myself? And I was like, okay, well, I've spent a lot of time learning on the job training for event planning, and literally like real event planning, not like, okay, you go do this and let me sit here and wait. But this was like literally logistics and running around and coordinations and timelines, all of that. And so I was like, okay, well, let me try this out and see how it works, and here we are.
And here we are, 13 years later.
Yeah.
What before we dive into the topic, like what do you love the most about being an event planner?
That's a good question. I think honestly I see this as an opportunity for so many people to get together to honestly create movements. Like I do so much work, especially with charities and on the corporate side. And here in DC, a lot of the, our clients are working within the government. And so they're doing a lot of changes to actually push, different objectives across the aisle. And so being able to really see myself help them to make an impact with what it is that their mission is probably the most rewarding thing I would say, because I feel like I'm a part of their movement, a part of their struggle, I guess, just to be able to achieve a lot of the stuff that they've done. So yeah, that will probably be the best reason why I stay in this, because it definitely ain't for the money. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, and waking up and these long hours. And I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I completely understand that. All right, well let's dive into it.
Yeah.
How should we look at virtual events, and what is the biggest benefit that you see with them? First of all, tell everybody. Let's take a step back. What are virtual events? And obviously, most of us know what meetings are, but what exactly is a virtual event?
Right. So now we're in this world where everyone's gone virtual. Everyone is connecting online in order to be educated, to push out content, and to entertain themselves. But a lot of people confuse virtual events from for webinars and even meetings, and all of them are not one and the same. So a webinar, and I'll start there. A webinar pretty much is one person delivering information to other people. It's more so of a teaching capacity that they have. So I have a block of instructions that I want to relay to however many people. Those people may very well be paying to get this information that I'm relaying to them. That's a webinar. Now, a virtual event is taking a face-to-face concept and moving it to a virtual platform. So if I am doing, for instance, an exhibit, and I have normally a face-to-face exhibit has, let's say, 50 exhibitors, and maybe it's some entertainment that's there and whatever else. I'm transferring that to a virtual atmosphere to create a virtual event. So it's not necessarily everything that I'm doing as far as a block of instruction. Yes, there can be educators involved or speakers involved in that. However, I'm making this to more of an experience versus it just being like a death by PowerPoint, presentation. So those are the two differences, because a lot of people get into trouble thinking that they're the same things. And when you say it's a virtual event, people are expecting a virtual event. Like, so you have to live up to a virtual event, and versus saying, oh, it's a webinar. If you tell me it's a webinar, I'll be like, okay, great. I can put this on mute. I can go and do whatever I got to do while I'm listening, and versus while I'm trying to engage and interact. So those are the differences between the two.
Gotcha. Okay. And so are there various platforms that we can use for the virtual events?
Yeah, so everyone, of course, by now is familiar with Zoom, and everything is. And I think I need to buy stock in Zoom at this point. But Zoom is the primary one that everyone's very familiar with, because it's honestly all you need is login information. So you can go onto Zoom and you can host a meeting, even if it's a one-to-one thing, for as long as you like. But of course, with Zoom, if you're doing a virtual event and it's 3 or more people, then it'll cut you off at like 45 minutes. So you have to go ahead and, upgrade to the pro, or even, to the group settings, so that way you can do various things on as far as a virtual event. But you also have like Hopin, and Hopin is really cool because with that, it's for people who are doing a lot of stage presentations. So if you have a conference that has a lot of keynote speakers, you could actually create a stage and build that out, get you an AV team, and record each of those people as they come in and do like their TED talk, and then stream that on Hopin for people to be able to watch and engage at the same time. So there's a Q&A that can be followed by that as well. Another one is Run the World, and I like it because it reminds me of Beyonce. But but Run the World is a mixture of Zoom. It's a mix of Eventbrite ticketing, but it also has like the networking features that a lot of people use on LinkedIn. So that is really cool. And then Communicate I like because that is more so for if I'm going out and I'm having a bunch of vendors, like vendor booths, expos, in that realm, that I want people to be able to do demos, so that way people that are watching can see, okay, I can go to this room and see a demo of this person, or go to this room and do a demo, or see a demo of that person, and just more of the activation there. But I think the most important thing is that whoever is doing a virtual event needs to understand what their end goal is. And if the goal is just, okay, I just want a platform, then you'll run the risk of getting on like Zoom, and Zoom not actually be the proper platform to meet the needs of your event, or even your sponsors, or whoever else is involved, because there's a lot of technical things that you need to focus on when trying to decide what platform to actually use.
Gotcha. Are there any dangers or anything that people should look out for when using these platforms?
Yeah, I have like a CVS list long of things that people have to look out for. So the biggest thing that people fail to realize is that they are not necessarily as equipped to run virtual events or even webinars, and people feel, okay, well, I've done FaceTime before, or I've done Skype, so this can't be that difficult, but it actually is. And the biggest thing that people fail to realize is that they cannot be the only person involved in producing these virtual events. Okay. So virtual events, and I tell people this, and they're like, okay, I didn't know these many people have to be involved. But with virtual events, you have a tech director, you have a production director, you have a creative director, you have a audio person, you have a event planner. I mean, you have an educator, which are like your speakers. So there's a lot of people involved in virtual events, and so I don't believe any one person should just take on all of those roles at one time. I was on a event with Event Manager Blog, and they have 10,000 plus people on these events. Now, me being one person and trying to manage all of those hats with 10,000 plus people is just going to cause people to leave that event because it doesn't have the correct manpower for it. So I think that's important, but also like the basics, having proper audio, having a microphone. Don't necessarily count on your computer's microphone to work effectively. Yes, some computers have great microphones and they'll be perfect for you, but when you are live, you don't have time to try to figure out if that audio is going to work in your favor or not. Great lighting is really key. And I one thing that I would say, if anything, have an assistant that can be there to monitor like the Q&A, to be able to answer the Q&A. So this assistant has to be knowledgeable on the topics that you guys are presenting, or be willing to, answer what he or she can, and then take the other questions to whoever that expert or that educator is. I find a lot of times that people struggle through answering and providing the value of virtual events and webinars because they don't have an assistant there to answer those questions. And people are there because they want to know, they want to learn. So therefore, their questions have to be answered. So I think that those are probably my key things when it comes to creating let me also add this. So when you're creating a virtual event, you have to focus on the how, not the what. And what is, okay, I'm having a virtual event because of this, and that. Got it. That's the easy part. The how is the hard part. And so how am I going to produce this? How am I going to provide value to everybody that's watching? How am I going to create this into an experience? How am I going to entertain them? How am I going to get them to come back for more events if I actually have more events? So it's really important to focus on the how more than you focus on the what.
Gotcha. So if you break it down, like, what's the difference between an event and a meeting? Like, what's the main difference?
So a meeting, like, I could do a meeting on a phone call. Hopefully I can do a meeting via email and save me some time. So a meeting really is us coming together to be able to brainstorm and discuss information. I wouldn't necessarily have a meeting. I leave meetings to one internal, so that way it's between you and your employees or your partners or your team, or between you and a client. I wouldn't call a meeting a virtual event because those things, like meetings, are very quick. They're not going to be an hour or 3 hours long. It's literally, there's one thing that I know that we need to talk about. Let's get to it and have that. So it's not necessarily a virtual event.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. What are some like good practices and good, just rules of thumb when it comes to virtual events and meetings?
Yeah. So one that, and I think that these can apply to both of them, is one, have an objective. Like, understand why you're creating this, because a lot of times people are so willing to just jump online, and you jump online and it's like, okay, this is a waste of my time, and this is, why did I get on here? So have an objective that is really going to resonate with your audience. Know your audience, of course. and be willing to get people involved, because again, the more people you have involved as far as educators, the more value people are going to see your virtual event, your meeting, your webinar to have. And that's really going to be important. I would also say get all of those participants to drum up the buzz about that. Like, for instance, what we're doing now, like we've had so many speakers, you know, that started from June 1st until today, you know, with you,
right?
That we put out flyers, we put out all of this content, and just so that way people can know about it, where to go to see it,
right?
And that's important. And so you have to drum that buzz up so that way people don't get distracted, because everybody's online.
Yeah.
They all want to find something to do, but when you give them something, make sure that it's going to resonate with them. I would also say, you know, when you're doing this, lay it out, practice. A lot of people don't practice their presentations or their virtual events before time. It'll be like, okay, I want you to be on my virtual event. I want this and this and that. Are you good to go? Can you do it on this day and this time? And then that's it. That's the extent of it. And no, I think that when you're doing this, you have to do a dry run. So go in, maybe it's a day or two before, maybe it's a couple of minutes before, test out your audio, make sure your slide decks and all of that are good. So that when you get ready to go, you don't run into any issues, that is smooth sailing, because what you don't want to do is cause people to be distracted by tech issues or anything else and get their mind focused on that,
right,
versus focusing on your content. And when you provide that distraction and remove the experience that they're going to have, then you've already lost, you know, the people that showed up to begin with. So I think that those are, and then I would say this is my last one. And I know I'm always going to say this. So my last one is that when you're finished with your virtual event or your webinar or whatever, if you want to monetize this, don't give that information out for free. And I say that if people have paid for it, great. Give them the link so that way they could rewatch it and all that. However, if people missed out on your webinar or your virtual event and it had tons of value, tons of people watching and tuning in and engaging, monetize that. And say, hey, look, if you want to be able to watch what you missed, here's a link. This is how much it costs, and go with that. And I think that if it's of value, people will pay for it, you know. And then also, don't give everything away for free. Like, stop having all of these free virtual events and free webinars. Make it where, you know, it's $25 to start, or maybe it's $100, or even, you know, have a donation button, you know, there too, because one, we all have time, and time is so valuable. Your speakers, you yourself, if you're creating all of this, you're investing time, so you should be paid for it. So I will end with that one.
Okay. Yes, and I mean, when you were, I agree with that. But when you were talking about, you know, do a dry run, technical difficulties, I couldn't help but to go think back to poor Teddy Riley.
Oh my God.
I mean,
oh my God.
That thing could have really, really, really been overly epic.
Yeah.
Had he not, it almost seems like he overdid it.
And that's the thing. And so when we go back to your first question on, your second question on what type of platforms to use, you have to know the abilities of your platform. And I think the biggest thing is, yes, he had too much going on for a platform that was not created for any of this that's going to versus, because Instagram is solely created for one-to-one interactions.
Yeah.
And with those one-to-one interactions, you only get so many views that can happen. And when you think about Instagram and you think about the IG lives, most times people are just there watching. Yeah. Now with Versus, you have people that are there watching, but also commenting. And when you're commenting, you're putting even more pressure on that system, in addition to you trying to have a video screen, a DJ, camera recording, all of that just overpowers the capabilities of a platform. And had you figured out the capabilities of that platform to begin with, we would have had none of this. Plus, your Wi-Fi sucked, which was probably the biggest thing to begin with.
It was just a hot mess that all of us were so ready for. And poor
Babyface.
He was just sitting there in his studio chilling. You know, he grabbed him a glass of wine. He was just like, I'm ready.
I know.
You know,
we wanted it to be great, and yeah, it just didn't happen. But the thing is, the good thing about that is that ever since, they have slowly begun to improve. Every single one of them has been better than the last one. So I do appreciate them using that to actually learn to be better. So yeah,
I agree. But I wish that we could have figured this out on not those two, because those two are such epic individuals, you know?
Yes, and it has such a huge, I think that thrusted all of the others to have such large viewer ratings. Yeah. I mean, there were so many people. It
was funny, straight up, it was hilarious. And created so many memes out of that. So I'm not mad at it. Thank everybody for tuning in. Just want to put it out there. If anybody has any questions for Mr. Roby about virtual events and meetings, please comment with your question. We'll definitely get to it. And Mackenzie, she asked, do you know about whereby? I'm sorry, whereby?
No, I have not heard of that. So I'll make note. Because I'm always trying to learn.
Yes, absolutely.
But and I haven't heard of whereby. No.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, hey, I think that with the growth of all of this, and with COVID-19 and a lot of things transitioning to virtual, we're gonna encounter a lot of new programs that I'm sure a new program is being born every day.
Yeah.
So absolutely, yeah, we'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
Let's see here. How now? Here we go. We've got our system together. Mm-hmm. Okay. Don't have too much going on in the background. We don't have too much going on. And now it's time to kind of put it out there and be ready. Right. Like, how do we prepare our clients, our viewers? Is there anything is sponsorship? Is that an opportunity for these virtual meetings and events? Like, how do we prepare our viewers for this?
Right. So I'm going to use my church as an example of this next tip, because they're still struggling to get this together. So one, a lot of people are still new to the virtual atmosphere, and so people are just now trying to figure out how to get on Facebook or Instagram and watch stuff, right? And so if you overcomplicate things, it's going to cause them to either not participate, or when they do participate, disrupt the actual process of your event. So with my church, right, every Sunday we come on and they make an announcement, please mute this, please, yes, administrative things. But people don't listen. They call in, or they're on their computer. I've heard people cooking. I've heard people talking and having conversations about this and that and all of that. So you have to prep your audience beforehand to let them know that, one, this is an event. Or you have to because if you want them to participate, right, if you want them to be a part of it, then you have to have that conversation. But I would say, if you're doing a virtual event or a webinar, give them the link that is just allowing them to view. So that way they don't have any audio access or anything like that. All they have is the comments. They can do the comments, but it doesn't disrupt the flow of things. And I think that as you get to having hundreds or even thousands of people participate in a virtual event or even a webinar, then that's probably the best process to take place. Now, as it relates to sponsors, right? Mm-hmm. I think that people are very unfamiliar with how sponsors can participate in virtual events, because everyone's so keen on the visuals of in-person events. And I would say to you that sponsors are looking for events to participate in. And there are so many ways to do it. But the first thing that you have to do is you have to do your homework. And that means that if I am hosting an event, I need to find sponsors that are going to support my event because they've done it in the past. That means I have to take the time to do research. And a lot of times, you know, when I'm doing consultations with my clients, they're like, okay, I'm going to create this sponsor package and then I'm going to send it out to people who I think should be a part of the event, and they decline it. And the reason they decline is because, one, you're creating a sponsor package based off of you versus basing it on them. And so you have to have these initial conversations with sponsors before you even pitch them a slide deck or sponsor deck, because you have to understand what their needs are. If they're giving you money, that means they want to be able to participate. They want to see return on investment. They want to see activation. They want to see people going to their website for their product or their service. So it's really important to do that homework first. And then when you do the homework, you have to let sponsors be involved. So you can't hog all the attention for you. So sponsors want to have their own private rooms where they can do demos. Sponsors want to be able to headline virtual events as far as title sponsors. They want to be able to sponsor entertainment. They want to sponsor giveaways. They want to mail people stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that sponsors want to do that can be done virtually. But again, you have to be able to do your research to say, okay, look, this is what's going to resonate with them. But there's so many ways to do it. You just have to be smart about how you do it. And then also have that audience. So you can't just say, I want to do an event and not have the demographics and the statistical information to give to those sponsors to let them know who's going to be attending, what's the age group, what's the demographics, all of that. They still need that. You know, how big is your audience? How big is this event supposed to be as far as people go? So it's the same, very similar to face-to-face. It's just that with face-to-face, you have all the visuals, you know, like step and repeats and stage signage and gift bags and you know, all of that stuff that you can't really necessarily transfer to virtual events. So yeah.
I gotcha. Let's talk about weddings and virtual weddings. So how does that work? You know, if someone's bride, you know, they are saddened by the restrictions of COVID-19. What does a virtual wedding look like?
Yeah. So, and this is this is very tricky because I mean, with us, like doing our micro weddings, we've been having these conversations a lot. And so a virtual wedding is really, really tricky because, one, what it is it gives you the opportunity to showcase your wedding to everybody that cannot attend. Now, that means the majority of your people probably are not going to attend because of COVID. And so what it is that you have a videographer that is going to come in and record primarily the ceremony. Right? So it's not a videographer like for us. We use Chip Dizzard. It's not going to be
my favorite.
Yeah, I love Chip, and it's not going to be Chip coming in and recording like you getting ready, hair and makeup, you driving to the venue, and none of that is included because it's so problematic, right? So with a virtual wedding, your audience is not going to see all of those intimate moments. I mean, honestly, they don't see them anyway until you give them photos. And so they're not going to see all of the intimate moments. They will see from the time the doors open for the bride or the groom to walk down the aisle, and then the ceremony starts. They go through the ceremony. They go through the end part. Like for us, we have a cake cutting. We have champagne toast, and family photos for the people who are actually there.
Right.
Then that's the end of it. And then of course they'll do some other stuff which may not necessarily be a part of like the live stream. But honestly, that's all you get. But if they do like a mini reception, then of course they can come in and do some additional video. But more than likely, you won't see all of that. You'll see maybe the first dance and mother son dance and daughter father dance, stuff like that. But that's the gist of it. So it's definitely, you can expect probably an hour of video for a live stream, and don't expect to be there 6 hours watching people get married, because that's not gonna happen at all.
Like several years ago, I had a groom who was from Brazil, and his mother could not make it.
Wow.
And we propped up the laptop in the front seat. In a row.
But if you think about it, how else would you do it?
Tilted it just right, made sure that she could see me. And that was my first introduction to a virtual wedding.
I mean, look, it's for mom. You gotta make it happen. I mean, but yeah, that's the gist of it. And so, but the thing is, I do like it because it does give people, especially like your grandparents and all of our older family and friends who would love to have come but just can't. It really brings them into all of that. And we've seen people like, they host it on a website, so it's just literally providing a link to your guest. Okay. They click on that link at that particular time, and then they can see it. But then they have the ability to comment. They have the ability to still use hashtags and comment, through that, and see all of the conversations about what's going on. It really makes you feel as if you're there. So it's a huge benefit. So I definitely see why people are doing it.
Yeah. And I could see family members that are not there, like conversing with each other in the comments, like, oh, she looks so beautiful. Look at Aunt Glenda. I don't know who told her to wear that hat.
That is true. That is right.
I can definitely see that. Do you think that since COVID-19 has happened, do you think that virtual events and meetings are here to stay? Or do you think that once things get under control, fingers crossed that they will, with COVID, that it will go back to that in-person interaction versus
very good question. I don't think that anything will ever replace face-to-face events. I think that right now we're in a standstill until the states give authorization to open back up. I think that people are just ready to go back to face-to-face events despite the uncertainties of COVID and not having a vaccine. But I do think so. The problem that I've seen even prior to where we're at now is that the infrastructure for virtual has not been built. When we talk about AI and VR, we talk about equipment like the goggles that I have to put on in order for that augmented environment to actually mean something to me. But those goggles are expensive. And so, people are not going to buy goggles to participate in a virtual event in the true virtual sense of it, because they are expensive. And so this is why face-to-face events have always had such a prominent objective, because people rather spend a couple of $100s to be able to buy a plane ticket in a hotel and go to it there. But with events now, the only reason why it's so elevated is because of COVID. I don't think that once we get back into a state where the governments, the state governments are opening, that we'll see much attention on virtual events that we're seeing now. I do believe that there will still maintain a hybrid type of event where, for instance, if I'm going to a conference, they still allow people to pay to see it virtually versus be there. However, I feel that that's going to slowly dissipate as we, get a vaccine, as we move further into 2021, and so on and so forth. I just don't believe that virtual anything will stay as prominent as it is if we don't, one, build the infrastructure for it, and two, decrease the cost of having people participate. So yeah, I mean, people love face to face. They want to be able to network. I mean, most events, honestly, and people may disagree, but most face to face events, people don't come necessarily for the education. Like, they don't come necessarily.
You're right. You're right.
They come because they want to network with people that they can do business with, that they can develop relationships with, and things like that. That really is. I mean, it's when you look at the statistics for South by Southwest, it is proven that the majority of the people that go to conferences and things like that are solely there for networking. If it's a concert, then that's totally different.
Yeah.
But for conferences and seminars and summits and things like that, it's networking. Yeah.
And the experience. There's some good food and some good swag.
I'm all for the food, so you would have me there for the food. I don't care about nothing else.
I got some really good swag at Tara's event. Like, there's this t-shirt. Yeah, like, I got this t-shirt that I try not to wear every day around my house because it is so comfortable. I mean, and I got it at her event, and I tell her each and every time, like, your swag on point. So
no, but it still looks good too. So like you and I love like her event because I've yet to go. I know that she's doing her she's pivoted to a virtual one in July, but I want to go to the in-person one because the photos and all that I've seen, I'm like, I have to get to her event because the experience is there. I mean, you can't replicate that online. Right. You just can't. So yeah.
And to be honest, it's pretty diverse too. And I think
that, so if anybody should be the definition of diverse events, it should be Tara's, because every time it's men, it's women, it's white, it's black, it's Hispanic. It's like, yes, it's across the board, which I think is just so perfect because people, and that's another thing with virtual events too. Even though you're doing a virtual event, that does not mean that you can not have diversity in there, because the thing is that people want to see themselves in the educators that are at these events. And so that is one of, so 80% of 80% of people who, and this is from this is the statistics from Google, 80% of people who go online to shop for things like that will pay for admission if they see people who look like them. So that is a huge number when it comes to people actually buying a product or a service from you. So if that many people want to see people that look like them, then you have to have diversity on panels and speakers and all of that. So yeah.
I mean, say that again. People want to see them in the speakers. You know, they want to. I agree with that 100%. So what can a person that's hosting a virtual event or a meeting, what can they do to make it more exciting?
Yeah. One, don't make it about you. Like, have when you're building out your virtual event, have the consumer in mind, right? And so if I am sitting on a 3-hour, or am I being asked to attend a 3-hour virtual event, I know that people are not going to be glued to their computer for 3 hours, right? So that means I have to incorporate breaks. I have to incorporate entertainment. I have to change up how presentations are going to be. So if someone's just talking, great. I want to then find somebody that's going to do probably a slide presentation. I want to then find someone that's probably going to do a video or something, like change up all of these presentations that you're doing. So you have to incorporate that, and then have entertainment. It's important for people to be able to, and this is where sponsorship comes back into the play, is that I should be able to have a band, I should have a musician, a MC, a host, like someone should be able to get everybody's energy up. And you have to make sure that when you're doing this, you remind your educators and all the participants about this too. Because if I'm sitting here and I'm like, and I'm in the same position over and over again, and I'm like, I'm moving around, my hands are going and stuff like that, it's because I want to showcase the energy I have to you, so that way you can return that same amount of energy back to me. And so you have to think about all of these things that's going to cause people to want to be glued to that screen for however long you want them to do. But then again, like I said, incorporate breaks are really, really important for people to have if you're doing long virtual events. But like I said, you can get sponsors to sponsor a break. It could be some of anything. And like I said, they can mail you stuff that when it's time for a break, they're like, okay, open up your box that I sent to you guys and let's in your box. You know, so there's so many ways you can make it engaging, and you can bring in your audience into the discussion and the experience. So that is like my top tips for that.
Got you. Okay. Yeah. There was something that you had said, and it slipped my mind. Oh, so
Tara.
yes. Oh, Miss Tara.
Just talking about you.
Talk to us about how COVID has affected you and your business.
Yeah. So in March, we were in Dallas when all of this started, because we were going to we were working with our clients in Dallas about their event, which was actually supposed to have been last weekend, which didn't happen. And so as we got home, just trying to see all of the stuff, like we heard about it in February, but we did not really pay attention to the impact of it, because, you know, people weren't really talking about it as much. And then as we started to get through March, the end of March, we're like, okay, let's see what happens. But we've since have, like, our calendar this summer was booked. Like we had, we had stuff to do, but all of our events have, from between March and all the way until October, have all canceled or pushed back. And so I am hoping that the events that we have in October don't push back or don't cancel, but it really has decreased our monthly revenue literally at least by 60%, if not more, in revenue. So it has, we aren't at a position where anything that we're doing right now is sustaining us to recuperate the same amount of money that we would have been making on a monthly basis anyway. So, I was talking to a few colleagues of mine in regards to like offices that we once had that we've severed ties, as far as with the lease, and now working from home, and just doing everything to not bleed money, but continue to retain as much as we can. Of course, we still have clients that we're working events with, especially for 2021, but certainly not nearly as much as we should be having right now to have income in like we normally would. Yeah. And it's crazy because last year was our highest sales ever. And
this year is gonna be the lowest.
And this year is the lowest. And I'm like, and the thing about it is, people say, okay, one, you can jump back and that, but not necessarily, because we don't know. No one knows how this market is. The U.S. went into recession in February. No one knows how this market is going to bounce back or how long it's going to take. I predict that we're not going to be able to recuperate the funds that we've lost until fall of 2021. So
fall of 2021.
Yeah, that's how I feel, because I mean we're losing thousands of dollars off of as far as rentals, clients, and contracts and consultations, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And I know that there's some businesses that won't make it. I know that there's some people that just won't make it because they'll be just so over all of this. So
they don't want to pivot, though. That's the problem, though, is that people are asking themselves, how can I do what I'm doing to make it work for now? And that's the wrong question to be asking as a business owner. As a business owner, you should be asking yourself, how am I going to think of new streams of income that ties to what I originally did?
Right.
That's what the questions should be, and brainstorming, asking those catalytic questions about how you can create different services and different streams of income to sustain yourself until things go back to whatever it is they're supposed to go back to.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Wow. Everybody, again, if you have any questions about virtual weddings, virtual meetings, virtual events, please feel free to drop some questions in for Andrew. He has been dropping some major knowledge about how to execute these virtual events and meetings. I remember that there was one virtual consultation I did with a really, 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 really good friend of mine. And when he came on the screen and his background was a hot mess.
Oh my God.
Hot mess, Andrew.
And it's common.
I was so afraid the client wasn't going to book him because it was like a hurricane came in and just swarmed. And it was like we didn't think about maybe straightening up back there before coming on.
But that, so that too, but in addition to the augmented backdrops that people use when they're doing these virtual calls, and it's really disruptive because especially on Zoom, I do not recommend these things to take place on Zoom if you want to use like the bookshelf backdrop or the Appalachian Mountain backdrop or whatever it is, because when you move, it disrupts everything. And it's like, okay, what's going on? It feels like I'm in the Matrix because you're moving around, and it's like, so that's one of the things I've told people. It's better for you to just have a white backdrop or a solid color than anything else. Like, just stop trying to feel like, you have to build this huge presentation behind you. But yes, if you are trying to do something and your backdrop is like, a hot mess and it's clothes everywhere and things like that, then no. That's not no. Mm-mm.
Just face a wall. Just face a
wall. It's that simple. It's that simple.
Yeah. Sarah said your background for your virtual is a great time to brand yourself.
That is true. Get yourself a step and repeat. Mm-hmm. and put it up. Put your logo behind you. Do something that will speak to your brand. Absolutely. Yes, a perfect comment. Absolutely.
So okay, while we're on it, and we've got just a few minutes left of this whole virtual, this whole unveiling COVID-19 events and weddings. Of course, there's a lot that's been going on in the world, period, point blank.
Yeah.
Just this year we've dealt with a lot, and one of the current issues, of course, is equality.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear your take on equality in the event industry, just in general.
Yeah. I think we've seen a lot happen just in the last 2 weeks, both bad and good. And I think right now is the time to focus on what good we can make in our industry. And I think a lot of times we have to look within ourselves and take on personal responsibility. And personal responsibility has so many phases with it. That means self-awareness, education, enlightenment, and then advocacy, right? And I think a lot of people now are in a stage where it is the self-awareness. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my God, I didn't know that this was happening, that I contributed to this. Right. I didn't make the actual steps to change what is going on, right? I think people are still in that phase and slowly getting into the awareness and education phase, where they're now seeing what things like unbiased or subconscious or bias and subconscious racism is, or what is anti-blackness or anti-racism.
Right.
And you know, all of those really key words are critical to understand. What's the difference between a Black person and a person of color? You
Right.
know, so I see that us moving towards this, but I also see, like, even today, even today, I made a post and I thought about this last night, is that yes, there is a sparkle of change. People are providing like lists of Black vendors, you know, in the event and wedding industry, and that is great. You know, I'm not going to denounce that or try to reduce how significant that is, because that is wealth. You know, being a part of those lists is wealth generation, right? But what I don't want people to do with these lists and the likes and the shares is to feel as if that's the end all be all, because that's not. That's like 20,000 feet below where we need to be right now, you know? And I think that as we as event professionals have to continue to push forward the agenda, which is equality for all and fairness, inclusion for all, because if we allow the vanity of being on lists and seeing people say Black Lives Matter and equality and all this and graphics, we will lose the momentum that this movement is trying to create for Black people and for people of color. And it's great. It's great for the conversations. It's great for the enlightenment. But this is long overdue. The Black community and people of color are owed so much more than what is taking place. So I would say to people that are out there that are, you know, watching or may watch this, that you have a objective, you have a duty for the event and wedding industry that you're in to make change in your private sessions, your private groups, your private events that you may be invited to where no Black person or a person of color is in the room with you. You have a duty to change that. You have a duty to, if you attend an event and all the speakers are white or all the speakers are Black, because it worked both sides.
Right.
You have a duty to say, hey, look, we need more representation. You know, we talked about Tara's event where it's representation, it's diversity, it's inclusion. You have that duty to bring that up and not wait until however long after to bring it up, because then it's dead. You don't have the ability to influence and cause change at that point. And so that's what I would say. I would say that we have to continue to make this a daily practice, because systemic change is never going to be something that changes overnight. Even when you implement laws like Minneapolis, Fort Lauderdale, and Georgia, and all of these other states and cities have begun to implement, Dallas and Houston have begun to implement a lot of laws, but that doesn't mean that those laws are going to change overnight. So it takes time. It takes time to break bad habits. And so we have to continue to push forward with all of this. I'm happy to see it's happening, but it's more to be done.
Here's my question. We've been fighting the fight, and we meaning us, our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents. We've been fighting a fight for a very, 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 very long time.
Right.
And it is just now that I feel that people are starting to wake up and say, hey, wait a minute. We are being treated unfairly.
Right.
What do you think that is contributed to? Why do you think that now is the time for change to happen? Like, what was it about this point in time that brought on that change?
I think so. Okay. I believe that because of all the things that has happened, that has come to this point, has been the reason why. So when we think about Ferguson, when we think about things that has happened, I mean, not just Ferguson, I mean, with all of these people, Black people that have died for doing basic things. Basic things, walking down the street in a neighborhood with Skittles, buying something from a store, asking for help, going to a neighbor's door and asking for help because you've been in a car accident, getting a standard ticket from a police officer for running or not putting on your blinker or something like that. Like all of these stories, to include that of a person sitting in their home and being shot. Having a person commit suicide in prison because they were falsely imprisoned. All of these stories have been the reason to where we are right now. And we've gotten to the point where we have said, you know what? Forget it. I do not care how much disruption I cause. I do not care. People are out here protesting in spite of COVID-19. And it has gone to the point where they are saying my life is not as important enough for me to sit quiet for the next generation to have a chance at freedom. My life, I'm willing to sacrifice so that way a chance for others who are coming up behind me may have an opportunity to breathe, may have an opportunity to voice their issues and the concerns, may have an opportunity to be treated like human beings. So what happened to George Floyd has just been the breaking point for the Black community to say enough. But the thing is that when we look at the movement that has started because of that, it is very different from Birmingham. It's very different from, all the other things, Rosa Parks sitting on the bus and the bus boycotts and all of these things, because at that time, it was only Black people. Now, we have people of every walk of life across the entire planet that is supporting what's going on. And it's because of that, I believe we're going to see change. But again, by no means do I feel as if this change is going to be overnight. I think that it's still a long road ahead, to include making sure that we vote out people like President Trump, vote out people like governors, vote out people like mayors and the elected police chiefs and all of these other people that are in positions that will continue to hold us back as Black people. And people have to realize that your voice matters. And I think about the voter suppression that's happening, that took place in Georgia, by people not even having polls open for allowing people to exercise rights that Black women fought for women to have the ability to vote. And now you have people in Georgia that are removing that right for every human being to vote. Things like that just does not sit well with me. And last night I was watching Where Are We Now with the own Spotlight with Oprah and all of these amazing people. And I tweeted, when you have a brother, a sister, a mother, a cousin that has lost a Black man, that has lost a Black woman, and they've gotten over however possible to get over the grief of that, to then have them have to help and support a Black mother, a brother, a sister, a cousin who's now going through the same exact thing, we have a problem. We have a huge problem. So I do hope that we are able to move forward and the laws are changed, the people are removed. But again, we have, as ambassadors of change, we have to do our part, both at the voting poll, within our communities, within our inner circles, all of this. And I hope that this just reflects a huge change that is long overdue. But because of all of these stories that have happened before George Floyd, that's the reason why I think that we're at a breaking point.
It's almost like he's the catalyst for the breaking point, period, for enough is enough. Sarah also says that the world is sitting still, which has allowed people the time to really think about what's going on and say that they're going to make a change.
And I think it's divine.
I
think it is divine because people always say, I'm too busy. And I say, you make time for what you want to make time for. But to her point, you ain't got nothing but time right now. There's nothing to do for you besides focusing on what you failed to do in the past. So I agree 100%. 100%.
My very last question.
Okay.
Do you think that weddings and events will resume this year? Or do you think that we're looking at pushing everything out to 2021?
I think that weddings will resume this year, but in a different format. I don't think that we are going to see mega weddings. I don't think that we're going to see, these huge 200 weddings or the 400 Indian, 500 Nigerian weddings. I don't think that that's going to happen. I certainly don't think that we're going to see the 10,000 plus people at events this year, although we have the Republican National Convention trying to find a home for 50,000 people over the course of 4 days to do events. I don't think that that should be something to happen because we just don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the PPE, a vaccine, any of that to really make these things safe. And I think event planners and vendors and wedding planners and wedding vendors have to really voice and step up to the plate to say we gotta wait. There's ways to do it. We talked about virtual weddings and events. That's the whole gist of this conversation. And I think that we have to stop being selfish and be willing to say, you know what, let's wait and find alternatives before trying to have these huge events and weddings.
Okay.
So,
yeah. We have to stop being selfish and find alternatives and wait.
Yeah.
I just trust me because just in case someone didn't hear you.
Right. And trust me, if look, my bank account would say, I don't know what the hell you're saying right now, Andrew.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, so it's not like I'm saying this because I'm sitting pretty and nothing's affected on my end. It's 5 of us that I got to put money, in pockets, but that doesn't outweigh people's lives and making sure that people are actually able to remember weddings and events years from now. So
yeah. One last question. Aisha Cotton says, what are some suggestions for bringing in income this year while live events are on pause?
Good question. So I think things like creating your own courses are going to be really critical for you. If you have been an expert for however many years and you've taught something or something like the back of your hand, figure out how to put that into a course, video course. I mean, you can create video on your phone if you have to, but create a course, use platforms like Teachable to be able to house that and share that with other people. Consulting. Like we have the ability. There's the barrier to entry within the event and wedding industry is ridiculously low. It's unfair. I hate it. Yeah, but you have so many people that are trying to tap into how to do this. So be able to be a consultant and to train people. Tara has a mentorship program that you can do. I mean, you can do that virtually. So figure out coaching, figure out mentorship. To be able to do that. But I also say that you could still be monetizing everything. You could create style shoots. You could create a style shoot in your house if you wanted to and get that published. You can go, people think about style shoots as these big, huge avant-garde, captivating things. And honestly, a style shoot could be a bride in a gown with a bouquet of flowers. And making it just very high end. So you have to think about all those ways, and you can get that published. You can get more eyes on it. You can get people to repost it on Instagram. Engage. With people. But most importantly, is build up your business to business infrastructure. If you're not on LinkedIn, that is where you need to be. And as far as business to business, because there's so much money there. There's so many people that are still hiring right now. Don't let these 40 million people who are unemployed make you believe that people are not still in business, because they are. So get on these platforms, take advantage, stop being on social media and just liking pictures, engaging, less a distraction. Find how you can make money. Get your to-do list at the start of the morning, and that to-do list needs to say, hey, look, this is how I'm going to make money today, and do that. And then when you're done, then be social and all of that kind of stuff. So I would say that is how to try to generate some money for this year, for sure.
Whew. It's been an awesome 7 days. It's been an awesome 7 days of unveiling COVID-19 weddings and events, and I'm so glad that divine intervention stepped in and blacked everybody out on your day and moved you to the last day, because this was absolutely awesome. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in all 7 days. Thank you to all of the speakers, William P. Miller, Will Medina, Terica, Lisa Zachary, Valerie Gernshauser, Tara Melvin, and of course, Andrew Roby. Thank everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Andrew, please tell people how to find you, how to get in contact with you.
Yeah, so you can find me, Andrew Roby Events, pretty much everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest. Yeah, you can find me just using Andrew Roby Events, and I'll be on there. And if it's not there, then I'm not on it. I mean, I'm not on TikTok either, so don't look for me there.
I'm not. I can't do it. All right. Thank you so very much, Andrew, and thank you to everybody again. And Avery Bobbitt says she's applauding. So goodbye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope that this has helped you all with moving forward with your weddings and events and virtual meetings.
Yes.
Here moving forward. Goodbye, everybody.